Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session on aiming for holistic immune health in partnership with BASF. Thank you for joining. Apologies, we did have a little bit of a technical fault earlier, but we have resolved that. And I am delighted to be able to introduce your speaker for today, who is Marianne here, who is Scientific Marketing Manager from BASF. Marianne is an expert in human nutrition with over 20 years worth of experience, and I'm sure she's going to share with us some key insights. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Marianne.
Thank you very much for having me today at Food Matters Live to talk about a topic that's so high on the agenda of many people, which is immunity. Looking at that slide, you might recognize yourself. How can I support my immune system? I'm nervous, anxious, or also sometimes concerned about what's happening. Which kind of solutions are out there and what's the right choice for me? So many questions to be answered and a lot of good reasons to step deeper into this topic. Today, we are going to look at three major points. First of all, gut health and immunity. Where is the link? Secondly, the consumer needs and understandings. And thirdly, opportunities for differentiating product offers in the market. So let's start with a short glimpse on gut health and immunity. Where is the link? So a well-functioning immune system, that is really key for a robust defense. And what is the immune system all about? We could talk about days and weeks, but we don't have the time. So very quickly, just some key points. The immune system, it's a complex interplay of many, many elements. There are organs, there are cells, there are signaling molecules, all working together, all intuitive, 24/7 with one common goal, ensuring the safety, integrity of our body, and thus defending from any harmful elements that might come from the outside. There are three major lines of defense. The first line, these are the so-called physiological barriers, the skin, the mucosa, that mainly have the task to prevent pathogens from entering to the body. The second line, this is the so-called innate immunity. This is available already at birth, and this is a system of cells that enables first defense after a pathogen has entered the circulation. And then finally, there is the adaptive immunity. This builds up over lifetime because usually the body keeps record of pathogens he has already defeated. So there is a kind of immunity or a build-up of antibodies. So if the same pathogen enters again, the body is already prepared. What can we do to support this robust defense? And here nutrition comes into play. An adequate nutrient supply is really key for a well-functioning immune system. And there is not one nutrient that plays the major role. There are several nutrients. There's the energy that needs to be there in sufficient amounts, the building blocks like proteins, amino acids, but also a lot of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, trace elements. So they all have important roles to play, which some of them are known for many years, but some of them, they just have been explored. And also in times like we have now, many new papers and many new studies are being published, for instance, on the importance of vitamin D. But today we are not going to look at these well-known nutrients, but we are looking specifically at the gut and the link of the gut to the immune system. 70% of our immune cells are located in the gut, and that's really an amazing number, and people have for a long time overlooked that. And also, the number of gut bacteria is higher than the total number of body cells. So a lot of inspiration for researchers to find out what's happening in the gut and also what could be done to have an overall positive effect on the gut and on overall health. So the gut microbiota is one key element here, and we could basically say it's like a new organ that has been discovered, which has opportunities to support health across the life stages. Yeah, the gut microbiome is the largest, the densest, and most diverse microbial community in the human body. It's unique like a fingerprint, so every one of us has a different microbiota. It has complex effects on human metabolism, and many links are just found out between gastrointestinal or mental disorders, but also disorders like autoimmune disease, diabetes, or also obesity. It's the first line of defense, so to protect against pathogens. It's in constant communication with the immune system. And what's very important, composition matters. So there's a so-called healthy state where we would say the microbiota is in a balanced, stable state with a diverse microbiota. And there's the so-called dysbiosis where you find abnormal colonization, a decline in beneficial and an increase in harmful bacteria. And these changes in the microbiota, they all also have an impact on what's happened on the gastrointestinal barrier. Let's look at that. The gastrointestinal barrier or intestinal barrier acts as an important gatekeeper. On the left-hand side here, you can see the gut barrier consists mainly of 3 layers. There's the mucus layer in direct contact to the gut lumen. There are the intestinal epithelial cells, and there is an inner layer. And if the gut barrier is intact, this is a barrier for mechanical and biochemical ways, and also it's a selective filter. So the nutrients that should enter the circulation can pass through, but pathogens, for instance, they cannot so easily. Looking at a disrupted gut barrier, this looks differently. So you can see that there are holes between the various epithelial cells so that food and microbiological components can pass through and enter the bloodstream. And this triggers inappropriate immune reactions and also sometimes a temporary inflammation. So this increased intestinal permeability plays an important role for human health, and everything should be done to avoid that. We have seen that on one of the previous slides that 70% of our immune cells are located in the gut. And when you look at these cross-sections of the small intestine and also on the large intestine, it's easily understandable that there are a number of different tailored immune cells available in the various sections of the gut that can all in all do their job for keeping the gastrointestinal barrier intact. A lot of research, of course, is ongoing currently to see what is happening in the various parts and how can we modify or manipulate that. So a big piece of research going on. Now, that's all good, but what does the consumer need and what does the consumer understand? Is he interested in learning about that? Yeah, and at the moment, and that's not a surprise, 6 out of 10 consumers, they say that they are more conscious about their health and well-being due to COVID-19. And also, about 73% of consumers say they will make greater attempts to eat and drink healthy. So perfectly in our space, what can we do with food, with diet, with nutrition to aim for better outcomes and for better health? Looking into the nutrients, it is also good to see that consumers know about well-established health ingredients and that they have a very important role in securing immune fitness, be it vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, or B12, carotenoids or DHA, and also EPA as polyunsaturated fatty acids that also have important roles, be it to lower risk of allergies, to lower the risk of respiratory infections, immune diseases, chronic inflammation, and overall a strengthening of the immune system. However, the consumer nowadays is also often confused because he gets conflicting messages from the media. And be it what these results are from the studies, one thing is very clear, that everyone should try to meet the daily requirements of these micronutrients in order to have the best basis for a robust and full speed immune function. So, what does the consumer know about the link between gut and immune health? Interesting to see, this is a study that has been run in the US, where 37% of consumers are aware of or extremely and very interested in the gut microbiome and how the good and bad bacteria in the gut impact overall health. And 66% of the consumers who take regularly a probiotic supplement, they do that for a healthier microbiome, or 43% do that for strengthening the immune system. And also 55% of consumers believe that their digestive health plays an extremely or very important role in the immune function. So, saying that, there is a consumer interest, there is an awareness, so a good opportunity also to provide solutions to the consumers. So what kind of opportunities for differentiation in the product offer do we have? And since we have been looking specifically at the gut and the gut mucosa and the gut microbiome, we have been focusing on these two parts. So the mucous membranes and the gut microbiome are very important when we connect the dots between gut and immune health, and they provide also clear opportunities for positioning of products. For the mucous membranes, for those of you located in Europe, you might also know that there are a couple of authorized health claims available for vitamins, looking into integrity of the mucous membranes. Also for the gut microbiome, there is a high awareness already for prebiotics, so the food, so to say, for beneficial bacteria. Consumer groups that are really benefiting from solutions that tackle both the immune function and also the gut membrane integrity. These are specifically toddlers or young children with a developing immune system and developing gastrointestinal structures, young adults that are often having busy lifestyles, also being very often confronted with some gastrointestinal sensitivities, active people where exercise often puts a kind of an additional stress on the gastrointestinal system, and that may lead to an transitory immune depression. And elderly, I think we all know, with aging, the functionality of many physiological reactions goes down, and so it is also with immunity. So which kind of offerings are there and how to differentiate? I think you all know there are many, many products already in the market making up this segment of digestive health. And what could be an option or an opportunity to differentiate in that? What I would like to talk about today, this is a new approach in the digestive health arena, and these are the so-called human milk oligosaccharides, or short HMO. They can provide multiple layers of protection. We know this also from early life, because mother's milk, as you know, is specifically designed for the baby, the infant, to grow and thrive healthily. So what are these oligosaccharides? They are the third largest solid component in human milk, and their concentration in human milk is about 300 times higher compared to cow's milk. So you cannot just say, oh, I can take cow's milk and have the same benefit. No, this is definitely not the case. And there are many of these oligosaccharides already explored, but the main, the most abundant, is one molecule that's called 2-fucosylactose, or 2FL. And you see this molecule structure on the bottom right, and the important element here is the red triangle, because that's a molecule you would not really find easily in other food or nutrition products. So let's look at what this molecule can do. There are various mechanisms of action at the gut-barrier interface, and I only quickly mention them. So in picture 1, you can see that HMO, they can really support the growth of the beneficial bacteria, mainly bifidobacteria, and at the same time dampen the growth of pathogens, because they are competing for nutrition and food to thrive. HMO can also act as antimicrobials or antivirals, so binding to the pathogens and making it easier to eliminate them from the gut. And thirdly, there are direct interactions with the cells, be it on the so-called carbohydrate coating of a cell, be it with direct binding to dendritic cells, or also be it via interaction with the barrier function. So many very interesting mechanisms to look at a little bit deeper. And we are also happy to share some of this evidence with you if you're interested after the meeting. So what does that mean in terms of benefits? How do these mechanisms translate into benefits? So we know that HMO can modulate immune functions directly, so with direct interaction with the cell, and indirectly via the bacteria. And here you see everything at a glance. So the orange box, this is more or less the cross section of the gut. You see in gray HMOs entering the gut, and only less than 1% is absorbed into the systemic circulation. And most of the HMOs, they stay in the gut. So they act as food for the beneficial bacteria. They interact with pathogens and compete for adhesion. They modulate immune reactions and strengthen the epithelial and mucosal barrier. So what does that mean for immunity? HMO, they foster systemic immunity. They can prevent and manage infections, and they increase the resilience to intestinal inflammation and attenuate and prevent allergies. So this is more or less the systematic approach. How does that work? And then you would probably ask, what is the evidence behind that? And again, there are a couple of studies that have been done and published to have a look into the effect of 2FL in immune health. And as usual in nutritional science, you have 3 pillars. You have association studies showing that higher consumption of 2FL is associated with a positive health outcome. Mainly, this always triggers the next part of research where you want to look into mechanisms in vitro and preclinical studies. And last but not least, of course, also clinical trials documenting beneficial effects of 2FL. So in the case of HMOs, it's a very new field. So bigger volumes to conduct clinical trials are available only since a few years. So most of the studies at the moment have been done with infants, but there are also a couple of them coming now out with adults and individuals across the life stages, all supported by the secondary evidence from the association trials and also the in vitro and preclinical studies, so that we can say that 2FL can provide multiple layers of protection to differentiate in the market towards a more holistic immune support. So when you take, for instance, the vitamins, you have more or less defined activities or defined actions a vitamin can have. If you take the prebiotics that are known in the market, they are also often very defined on various actions. And with 2FL, you can go for a broader, more holistic support, and maybe, if you would like to do that, also in combination with other nutrients like vitamins, to have an even broader approach. When it comes to differentiation, you might also be interested in, can you protect this differentiation? And here, just a very quick view on the option to have a protected differentiation, which you can achieve when you use a Prebilac, the BASF molecule. There we have the IP for digestive health, and for digestive health also linked to immune function. And for this, as this is always a very, quite complex stuff where you need to be very precise. We are happy to be available for further talks to explain. So how to incorporate 2FL or a Prebilac into attractive consumer solutions? And you may remember in one of the previous slides, I showed you some interesting consumer groups, so the toddlers, young adults, elderly, sports people. And for these, we have been working in our application specialists on various concepts, which I just flipped through to show you. Can have, for instance, gummy, you have capsules, chewable tablets, liquid shots, or also powder sticks that can be mixed with liquid or water or with different food. So why work with Prebilac 2FL? I'm just summarizing this on my next slide. So boosting immunity via the gut microbiota and standing out from the crowd, that is possible, especially in this time where the awareness is really rising. So you can ride on the growing market momentum, and it empowers you to respond to increasing consumer demand and evolving needs. Prebilac or 2FL, this is a really human-designed prebiotic, so it allows to innovate in products promoting a natural and holistic approach to foster digestive and immune health, because this molecule has been really designed for human consumption. It's IP protected, as I mentioned previously, and it is accompanied by emerging science. So a lot of papers are coming out every week. It's a very fascinating area to look at and to observe. And it's easy to formulate, what I try to show you by the various concepts or various prototypes that are feasible with 2FL. So with this, very quickly in the given time, I hope I could give you a first glance into the topic. And I thank you very much for your attention. Again, sorry and apologies for the technical difficulties earlier today. And for more information, you are also happy to visit our website or just get in touch with me and drop your questions. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much there, Marianne. Very insightful insightful presentation there. We do invite the audience, if you do have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A element for Marianne to be able to answer now. Marianne, I do have a question, actually. Obviously, the whole impact around COVID-19 and immunity and gut health, and you showed some interesting statistics there. Do you have any indication about how this whole thing might evolve with regards to consumer awareness in terms of immune health and taking a more holistic approach?
Yeah, so what we have seen now is that, of course, with the new messages about COVID entering in earlier this year in spring, there was a kind of an all-time high in Google searches, in requests for information about immunity. And what we see now is a little bit of a kind of a stabilization, but still on a very high level. And what we also saw is that some of the people are not only looking into boosting their immunity, they are also thinking about their lifestyle. Is it healthy to sit all day in front of a computer at home? So what could I do to foster my overall health and well-being? So that's also an interesting point that comes up.
Okay, thank you. And do you see in that sort of difference, do you see across the European territories, do you see there much difference between certain countries?
Not so much between the European countries. So, of course, there are countries where, for instance, it's more popular to use dietary supplements, like countries in the US specifically. You have a very high user rate of dietary supplements, which is a little bit lower so far in Europe, but it's also changing a little bit, so to catch up with that.
Okay, that's been really, really insightful. Thank you so much, Marianne. For everybody who's attended, thank you too.
Welcome.
And just to say that the session has been recorded and will be available on demand as well for anybody who was going to attend earlier but wasn't able to make this session. So thank you again, Marianne, and for all your patience.
Thank you. Thank you, and successful meetings still to come.
Thanks very much, Marianne.
Thank you. Bye-bye.